Well, welcome to a special online segment of the platform, and happy Australia Day to everybody. This story I woke up to this morning, couldn't believe it. It's the preview. So when the show airs on HBO, the documentary about Micheal Jackson, it's just going to be crazy. And one of the guys featured in it is Robson, an incredible story who I actually interviewed years and years ago on the Gold Coast. And here it is.
We're doing a show that is about, stories, and your story is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
When did the dream start for you with your dancing?
Pretty much when I was 2, as soon as I could walk. I saw them making a Thriller. Micheal Jackson's making a Thriller, and I think it was my brother's tape. Saw it when I was 2, and as soon as I figured out how to use my legs, started learning all the dance moves, and we just watch that all day, every day, and run into the kitchen and hide every time the werewolf part came on, and come back when they were dancing. So I just dance all the time. And when I was 5, there was a dance contest being held. Micheal was holding. He was traveling all around Australia. I think it was like '87, and he was holding these dance light contests. All my mother's friends were saying, you should put him in it. You put Wade in it. He's really good. She's like, he's just a little kid. He's just messing around. She didn't think it was really anything serious. I said, no, he's good. Put him in. So she called him, and I was actually too young. It was like 8 and up or something like that. They said, well, let him do it for fun. He's not going to win, but we'll let him do it. And I went in with my full bad suit and hat and everything, and I ended up winning it. I went on to the finals and won that, and then the prize was to meet Micheal. So we went to the show. Afterwards, there was a meet and greet. Went backstage, had on my whole suit again, and so he was tripping out on my suit, and he was like, do you dance? I said, yeah. So he said, why don't you perform with me tomorrow night in the show? Okay.
How many people were watching that show when you performed?
About 20 or 30,000, something like that. Yeah. So we went to see the second show, and we're sitting in the seats with my parents and everything, and then this big, massive bodyguard comes and picks me up out of the seat and takes me backstage, and it's like the last song was bad, so throws me up on stage with Micheal, and I run to the front of the stage, saw Micheal throw off his hat, threw mine off in the audience, and just started killing it, and I was just like, this is it. This is what I want to do. It was actually funny because Micheal came up to me one point while we were on stage and gave me one of his little things, and I thought he meant like to get into it more, but it actually meant it was time to go. Like the show was over. So it's like him and Stevie Wonder on stage, and so they start walking off, and like Micheal can't get my attention and leave. I'm just so into it. I'm just performing for the crowd. So they all end up leaving, and the band's just jamming, and it's just this little 5-year-old out front, and I just wouldn't stop dancing. And I finally realized that everybody was gone and ran off,
So it's such a crazy story, and of course Micheal Jackson, a hero to so many people for so many decades. Had to ask you more about it.
Hadn't kept in contact with Micheal, but we figured we wanted to try and meet him again, which is not something you just do. You don't just say, hey,
talking about Micheal Jackson.
Micheal again, yeah. So the company came out, performed at Disneyland. Everybody else went back. My family and I stayed and tried to figure out a way to get in contact with him. From number to number, got a hold of his secretary. She talked to him, and he remembered me from when I was 5 and wanted to meet me again. So we went to the studio where he was recording the Dangerous album at the time, and it was like '89, and with the whole family, grandparents and everybody, and just hung out for a couple hours and watched videotapes, and then he asked the whole family to come back to the ranch, his place that night, Neverland, and we ended up staying there for like a week.
That must be every kid's dream. I mean, my dream would have been to go there too.
Yeah, I mean, it's Disneyland. His house we showed up, it was just the best thing in the world. So then over the next 2 years, we stayed in contact with him, and my mother and I would come out and visit every now and then for like 6 weeks at a time, hang out. And then when I was about to turn 9, my mother, my sister, and I packed up 6 suitcases one day and left. Right. And we had been talking about it for a while, and Micheal sort of helped us out, sponsored us out to America, and we just did it. We were going to make it happen, living on a dream, Wow. Everybody thought we were insane, especially my mother. That all the family thought she was crazy. Yeah. Left what we knew as our life for so long, and just left it all behind. So we're ready for something new. At 9, I decided to make the move.
Yeah, at 9, right? Yeah, at 9, I had my new Smurf thing from the petrol station. You're hanging out with Micheal Jackson.
Yeah, it's not the normal childhood, that's for sure, and it's not just hanging out with Micheal Jackson. It's the work with Britney Spears and NSYNC, and writing and producing. An incredible story.
I started teaching dance classes when I was 12. Sort of got tired of taking classes and figured it was time to teach. So like the dance studios knew me as a dancer, as a professional dancer, and so I just went to them and gave him a picture and resume and said I want to teach. Little 12-year-old, at the desk. I want to teach. Yeah. So they started me off like subbing, so if a certain teacher couldn't make it in one night, they'd send me in, and so people would come in and take the class and say, okay, who's the teaching? And you'd be like, the little white boy over there, with the shaved head. A lot of people would leave before they gave me a chance, But I think the thing was, like, there's a lot of 12-year-old kids that are great dancers. I think the difference was that I understood how to teach. I understood how to break things down. I don't know why, it just sort of made sense to me.
It's natural.
So, my stuff even then was pretty hard, so people would, like, I'd show the routine at the beginning of the class, and some people would freak out, so there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. But then by the end of the class, they'd be doing it, because I knew how to break it down to them. So quickly, they gave me my own class, and had like 50, 60 people in my class, and I used to do that every Saturdays, and then I started teaching like 8 or 9 classes a week. Then I had my first choreography gig when I was 14 for a group called Immature, with some music video. So did a bunch of stuff with them, people in their camp, and then started at that time developing what sort of became my niche as a choreographer, which was doing the music hand in hand with the choreography. So when I worked with artists, I'd take their songs and remix it and add accents for the dance moves and all that sort of stuff. And so then started working with Britney when I was 16, and that was when it was her first tour. I sort of got the job on spec to begin with. I had known one of her dancers since I was like 10. He talked me up like crazy. Thing is, nobody in her camp knew how old I was. Right. And so they would, like, people in her camp would call the house and talk to my mom, and they thought she was my wife. Right. So we just didn't want to tell them at that point before I got a chance to prove myself, because they were freaked out. And it was for her first tour, and it was like they were hiring me to do the opening of her show, which was I did like a 4-minute original musical piece as well, and so I went out to Orlando to work on it. And I'm sitting in the lobby with the dancers waiting to meet Britney for the first time. And she still doesn't know that, I'm 16. And so she comes down and sitting with all the dancers, and we meet, and she doesn't really put 2 and 2 together, because I look like just one of the dancers' friends. So I thought it was funny. I went along with it. And we get to the dance studio, and she figures out who I am and takes this dancer in the corner and says, "What are you doing? He's a freaking baby. He can't choreograph." Yeah. The same age as her. Yeah. And he was like, "Look, let him prove himself. Let him do what he came here to do." So I started and showed her what I wanted to do, and she freaked out, and he said, "I want to sign you up for everything I do." Wow. So then from there, I started doing like all the award show performances, MTV Awards, and quickly doing the steps, just the choreography was never enough for me. I knew I wanted to start directing, and so I would start saying to her, like, let me write some concepts for your shows, and let's get them more story-oriented, and create sets, and more involved costuming, and all these things. So each job I would get more and more involved in creating the entire environment, So then started, that naturally went over in NSYNC after about a year or so, and same thing with them. Started as a choreographer, then built up to directing their shows, and their last couple of shows, I wrote the whole show and directed everything, choreographed it.
Yeah, it's unbelievable what Wade was achieving as a teenager, even writing songs.
Sort of got my first real kickoff with that, with the NSYNC album, the Celebrity album. Yeah. Justin and I, when I was working on their No Strings Attached tour, always talked about working on music together. After that, he came to the house for a couple weeks, and we just clicked, and did like 7 or 8 songs, and 4 of them ended up on the album, and 2 of them ended up the first 2 singles.
Make you pretty proud happen?
Yeah, it was pretty insane. It happened so fast, and we were just making songs, and we didn't even, 2 of the songs that we didn't even think were going to make it on the album were Pop and Gone, and they were the first 2 singles. Yeah. Just like, okay.
So such an incredible story, and I'm sure when this documentary comes out, Wade's name is going to be all over the world once again, but nothing can take away the fact that he's such an incredible talent. He's had the most amazing journey, and his advice to young people is awesome.
Now, if you were talking to someone that was, thinking about following in footsteps like yours, and that's pretty rare for something like, your story, but what would you say to young kids out there that have a dream of, they feel music like you did?
Yeah. One of the best things I ever had was my teachers, actually, which was my mother, my grandmother, and Micheal. And the things that they taught me was, if there was anything that I wanted, they taught me how to visualize. I think the most important thing for kids is to really figure out what they want, realize that anything is possible. So don't hold back in your dreams. Always shoot as high as you possibly can, but be detailed about it. I get mad when I hear kids say, like, "Oh, I'm gonna be famous." For what? How are you going to do it? How are you going to get there? Figure it out and work out a plan and visualize it and use it. It's sort of like trickery to your mind. Like if there was a job I wanted, say I wanted to be in some music video, I'd sit down and I'd think of things almost like they were a memory. I would picture myself like on the set, walking to a trailer, walking to the catering table, stupid things, just to place myself in the situation. So you make it a reality in your mind before it happens. So then it's sort of not even a question. And every time and it's hard to do that all the time. It's hard to stay that focused all the time. You get caught up in things. It gets hard, But every time I've done that all the way, I've always got anything that I've wanted, So it's just about setting goals and visualizing them in detail, and it'll happen.